I was 15 years old when this story takes place. My cousin Adan was about a year or so younger than me. Now, just to give you some backstory on me and my cousins, we were more like brothers. I had my cousin Adan, another cousin Che, and even when we were like single-digit ages, right, we'd always spend the night at each other's house. Sometimes there'd just be a knock on the door randomly, I'd open the door and there'd be Adan with his book bag. He'd be like, "Primo," and I'm like, "Primo." Primo means cousin in Spanish. If you couldn't tell, I'm a Chicano. If you don't know what Chicano is, it's a dying breed, but that's a story for another night. So he'd be like, "I'm here to spend the night," as his parents are just pulling out of the driveway. I'll be like, "Come on in." And he'd run over to my mom, be like, "Tia Maria, are you gonna make enchiladas for dinner?" And she's like, "Anything for my little brown baby boy, goody, goody, goody." And my mom never talked to me that way. But that's a story for another time. And she'd be like, "I'll make you enchiladas under one condition." And we're like, "Yeah, what? And she's like, "Go to the quick shop and go get me a pack of Vantage Ultralights in the 100s. That's old school. Cigarettes. We're 6 years old, gonna go buy cigarettes, but it was cool because you could do that back in the 80s. And on top of that, we were raised to be real independent. As a matter of fact, the biggest insult between my cousins and I was mama's boy. If you were living at home past the age of 18, you were a mama's boy. Yeah, that triggered some of y'all, huh? This is your permission to get your 28-year-old son out the basement. So now I'm 15 years old and it's Christmas break. The forecast calls for it to be cold and snowy. I go to my folks, I'm like, "Hey, yo, I'm gonna spend the night at Adan's house." And they're like, "All right, do you need a ride? Are they picking you up?" I'm like, "No, I'm actually gonna go to the quick shop to get some snacks. They're gonna pick me up over there." "Cool, call me if you need a ride when you get it, time to go home." "All right, bet." And with that, 2 words, I'm out. I get my book bag, I start walking to the quick shop. But I don't go to the quick shop that's in my neighborhood. I go to the one that's like 3 miles away, in between my house and Adan's house. I get to the quick shop, I load up on snacks, some chips, Pepsi Wild Cherry, the best pop ever, some peanut butter M&Ms, minty fresh gum, and I'm waiting for Adan, and Adan shows up, and I'm like, "Primo," and he's like, "Primo." He was on foot, there was no ride. And he's like, "Yo, what'd you tell your parents?" And I said, "I told them I'll spend the night at your house. What'd you tell your parents?" And he goes, "I told them I'll spend the night at your house." Why the subterfuge? There was a girl involved in this story. And I was real sweet on her. And her name was, well, to protect the innocent or the guilty, tonight we're just gonna call her Vicki. And I really loved Vicki. She had a bad attitude, wore hoop earrings, and listened to Fleetwood Mac. You like Fleetwood Mac? I could tell. You ain't here with no man, are you? Hey, Ben, we're going to Grotto after this? You know where Grotto's at. Hey, that doesn't count for part of my time. I'm trying to flirt. So anyways, I'm like, "All right, Adan, do you need some snacks?" And he's like, "No, I got everything I need in my backpack." And I'm like, "All right, well, now it's time to head out. We're going to go to Vicki's house, 5 miles away." It was cold and the snow started coming down. I put my hood up, kind of walking like this with my head down, about to cross the street, and all of a sudden, Adan yanks me like he wants to fight, like, vroom! And I'm like, "Yo, what's up?" Half a second later, vroom, big old 4x4. If it wasn't for Adan, I wouldn't be here telling a story. We are cousins that were more like brothers. We protected each other, and that's what he did. So we trek our way 5 miles in the cold, in the snow, to a park in northeast Lincoln. And in that park, it butted up against Vicki's house. Now here's what's happening, is that night, Vicki was having a sleepover. 5 other girls. And so when she dared me and Adan to sneak over, well, Mama didn't raise no punk. And if she did, it was my older brother. So the signal was that sometime between 10:30 and 11, she was gonna flick the light on and off in the bedroom, and that's the signal for us to go and like sneak in through the basement window. So we're there, it's kind of cold, it's snowing or whatever, and I'm like, all right, man, I go to Adan, I'm like, hey, yo, Adan, so who you here to see? Who you gonna lay the Mac on? And Adan, with this big, beautiful smile, he goes, Vicki. That's how I felt. And I'm like, no, man, like, I'm here to see Vicki. And he's like, yo, I said her name first. And I'm like, yeah, man, but you only said her name first because I asked you. And he goes, don't get caught up on technicalities. I said her name first. He was right. I hate it when he was right. And I had to honor the code. And it wasn't some stupid bro code. It was deeper than that. It was the samurai code. So I was all serious, all bummed out, and he could see that, and Adan had his heart of gold, so he's like, all right, man, look, I'm gonna make it fair. And I'm like, all right, cool, what you got in mind? And he's like, opens up his book bag and pulls out a jar of pickled jalapenos. And I'm like, yo, we are two brown boys in a shelter at the park while it's snowing, and you've got jalapenos. Can you get more stereotypical? And I'm like, why do you have a jar of jalapenos? And he goes, because I knew you weren't going to bring any. He was right. I hate it when he was right. And he's like, look, what we're going to do is this. Whoever can eat more jalapenos gets dibs on Mac and on Vicki. This is Vicki's jalapeno challenge. Now, see, the thing you don't know about jalapenos, y'all, is they're the deceptive pepper. You can't tell by their looks if they're mild or wild, if they're hot or vindictive. But I'm like, yo, you ain't the only brown boy here. All right, so here we go, man. So I grab that first pepper and I pop it in, and it's hot. And I'm starting to sweat already, and like my heart is beating, but I see that window over there, and I'm like, Vicki, baby, I'm coming to you. I get for that second jalapeno, and that second jalapeno is even hotter than the first jalapeno, and I'm like, oh man, and now, like, you know, everything is getting kind of weird and tingly and everything. My heart is racing, I can barely breathe, and I'm like, Vicki, baby, I'm coming to you. And then I go for that third pepper, and I pop that in my mouth, and it's vindictive jalapeno. And I'm starting to cry, and there's boogers coming down my face, and I really can't take it, and I'm looking, and I'm like, Vicki, baby, I'm coming to you. And then the light starts to flicker. And I go to wipe the tears from my eyes and the acid from the peppers, and and everything is going crazy. I just feel like I've made out with an electric fence. I can't see, and my ears are burning. And I'm like, what do earlobes have to do with taste buds? And if my ears are gonna feel bad when I eat something spicy, why don't they feel good when I eat something sweet? Like pie. I like pie. How come my ears don't like pie? And I just can't take it anymore. I wanted to continue, but my will was broken. So I hand that jar back to Adan and I go, it's your turn. Hurry up, the lights are on. And Adan, with his big smile, just seals up the jar and goes, I'm actually here to see Andrea. She was at my house last night, and guess what she told me? What? That Vicki has a crush on you. We slide through that window. Vicki comes up. Oh my God, Felix, it looks like you've been crying. No, it's just my allergies. What are you allergic to? I look at Adan. Bullshit. About 8 years later, almost to the day, Adan was tragically taken from us. I wasn't there to protect him. I didn't honor the code. 3 or 4 years after that, I'm riding with my other cousin, Che, who's like a brother to me, and we decided we're gonna go pay respects to Adan. We're at his gravesite. I'm there looking up at the heavens, Che's down on a knee, kind of just touching the grass. And in some self-righteous martyrdom, I say the most selfish thing that I've ever said in my life. I'm just like, I wish it would have been me. And Che, in his compassionate wisdom, looks up to me and goes, I don't, because then we would just be missing you and Adan would be suffering. And I don't know what I've done to deserve such beautiful people in my life. And I don't need the death of my cousin to appreciate life, mine, yours. And you don't need a beautiful brown boy in your life to relate to this story or another story on this stage. And so I hope you share your story with someone else, and they'll relate and they'll share their story and they'll relate, and we'll see that we're all in this thing together. We're all just part of the great conversation. I want to thank you for letting me share my story, for keeping my beautiful brown cousin alive for one more night. Thank you.